All right, every single Wednesday we're coming at you with Want to Know Wednesday, 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Today's question came from Instagram. The Instagram question is basically as a comment and a question, but it caught my attention, so I'm like, hey, let's roll with this. Came from Does P, which DUUZP on Instagram. I'm a developer in Canada. In Canada, our prices for homes are out to lunch, and recent rate raises have dropped prices and increased rents. I keep hearing how the rental market is going to do great because people can't afford a mortgage anymore and will be forced to accept higher rents. My question is, when does the rental market break? If the economy slows and rent is up, won't we just see an increase in non-payment and delinquency? What do you think? I think that that's a great question. Obviously rates, no one knows where rates are going. If you did, we'd not be here doing what we're doing today because you'd be so successful financially, you just wouldn't have to do anything if you absolutely knew where rates are going. So no one, including the Fed, they have no idea what the hell they're doing, so no one knows where rates are gonna end up at. What the increase has done so far is obviously slowed a lot of things down. You're seeing a lot less transactions, you're seeing renegotiating going on, you're seeing some seller financing deals come back around again, you're seeing people get squeezed. I mean, think about it. If you bought a house last year for $500,000 or $300,000 or $1 million, it doesn't matter the price point. If you bought a house about a year ago, 12 months ago right now, versus if you bought it right now at the same price, you're paying about double for that mortgage because of the interest rate, right? And the interest has gone up so much. So yeah, the people that got into homes a year ago, are they gonna have any issues? No. I mean, they're gonna, as long as they don't have to sell in the immediate future, they're not gonna have issues, which that brings me to another topic is people that are playing the short game and just playing flip and doing the BRRRR, which I was kind of always making fun of over the last 3 or 4 years because I knew those people are going to get caught in a pickle at some point. They've kind of got caught in a pickle where they might have bought a property 4 months ago. They're doing the rehab on it. Rates have skyrocketed and it's going to completely change their exit strategy. They might not be able to exit anymore. And if they can't rent it for their expense on it, they might have to sell it at a loss. Other home buyers who are just looking to buy homes, maybe being priced out of the market, so they're getting squeezed. So what will that do to the rental market? I don't know for sure, right? But again, if you can play the long game and have a long-term strategy, you're going to be all right. Real estate is like a roller coaster. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down. You never want to be forced to sell when you don't want to sell, right? You never want to be forced to sell when the market's on a downswing, right? And so I think that, number one, I go back to looking at the statistics. I'm gonna say what's on my mind, what I've been seeing in the deals I've been looking at, what I've been seeing in our own portfolios and all that stuff. And the first thing that I kind of look at just from a macroeconomic landscape is there are 5 million homes. It's reported, there's stats out there saying there's 5 million fewer homes than are needed in the United States. Now the question was on Canada. I'm just talking about mainly the United States. I think some of these things still apply in Canada. We're going to feel and go through some of the same things, but in the United States there's about 5 million fewer homes than are needed. Now the interesting thing is, okay, well, how are you completely looking at that data? Because what happens sometimes in a recession or in a time of turmoil and rocky times, when people have issues financially, the amount of people actually looking for a home, which a home can be, when I say home and they're 5 million homes short, that's between single family houses and multifamily, just total homes, places for people to live. If it was 5 million, what is that 5 million based on? If it was 5 million short, what is that 5 million based on? Is it based on just every single person looking? Is it based on like some population and they do a calculation that they need? Because what's going to happen is if people's incomes start going down or they get squeezed because of inflation and a recession's going on and people lose jobs, that 5 million number should change. There won't be 5 million homes needed right in that moment anymore because people are going to bunk up. Right? You might have 3 individuals who are each looking for their own apartment or own house a year ago, and now all 3 of them might be bunking up into a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom apartment, right? So it's a 3 for 1. So how drastically does it change that 5 million, the amount of being short 5 million homes? But when you hear 5 million homes short, that's also a very large number, right? And so then you go back to, okay, well, what's the true supply and demand? And if people are truly looking for affordable living or a certain type of apartment, and depending on where they're at geographically, there might be places geographically that have a lot more supply. Thus, when demand is dried up a little bit because you have 3 people bunking up, they're going to get hit harder. The rental rates are going to get hit harder. They're going to have more concessions. They're going to have higher vacancy. They're going to have more issues, right? In a place that has high demand with a lot of people still moving into it or have just recently moved into it, as long as those people stay there, that demand might remain really high, and maybe the rents don't grow 10% or 20%, but maybe they still grow 3% or 6% annually. So I think a lot of it depends on where you're at. I think a lot of it depends on where you're at geographically in the United States. I mean, Miami is going to be different than Wisconsin. Houston's going to be different than New York. San Francisco is going to be different than Seattle, right? So I think you're going to have, there's the big micro play, right? And the micro viewpoint, but then there's also a macro viewpoint, but then there's also the micro viewpoints of each individual market. Now, something that I've noticed looking through some of our data and stuff like that in our properties, there are people that are starting to pay a little bit later, or people that never had an issue paying historically over the last year or 2 years. They now pay, when they used to pay on the 28th prior to the month being due, or on the 2nd, or on the 1st, right when it is due, they're now paying potentially on the 5th or 6th. And so we're starting to see a little bit of a slide there. Why is that? I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why that could be, right? It could be because of you have this inflation going on, plus if there's a little bit of a recession, people start losing jobs, prices still are going up, it makes it harder. Even if prices stay the same and people are losing their jobs, it still makes it harder. They're paying more for other goods and services. It makes it harder for them to pay their rent with this paycheck and have to wait till the next paycheck to be able to pay the rent to make sure they can also put food on the table and make their car payment, et cetera, et cetera. So we are starting to see those in very small amounts across our portfolio, which is why I'm diving into our operations a little bit more. The thing too with real estate, stats, I mean, it's everything. Everyone's always talking about the cap rates and all this stuff. When it comes to real estate and real estate data, it's always a little bit more delayed than some of the other things that are out there. So like when we're talking about cap rates and people thinking that, okay, cap rates need to adjust because rates have risen, we're potentially in a recession. Well, you don't really see that data. I have a lot of people like, well, but cap rates haven't changed. Like not all that data has come through. That's on a 90-day delay because when you wrap up a deal, you're wrapping it up today. So people that are closing real estate deals today, they got under contract 90 days ago. A lot has changed in the last 90 days. So when we're getting people that are, over the next 45 days, I think it's going to tell a lot about the transactions and the data that comes from that transactions as far as cap rates, right? And I think the same thing is going to apply to other areas in housing to get more of an answer for you. But the thing is, I'm looking at the macro, and what's on my mind to kind of recap is there's 5 million homes that are short, and this is what was being reported over the last couple of years. In this current time with rocky waters, maybe there's only 2 million homes that were short, not 5 million. Maybe we're even now, because that many people have decided to bunk up, right? I don't know. But that's a thought that is on my mind. I don't have an answer yet. That's a thought that's on my mind. The next thing that I'm going to keep looking for is, okay, what are delinquencies doing? How many people are we having to evict? And what's going on with those national numbers, the regional numbers? And again, sometimes it's hard because there's a delay in some of these numbers, which I think is another issue that the Fed, they're raising rates, but they're looking at data that is rear view mirror data. It's not actually live. It's not today, right? So they're still on the rates, raising the rates, right? And they're going like crazy, but the data that they're using is not today. The data that they're looking at is 30 days old, 60 days old, 90 days old, 120 days old. And when you're making decisions off that, it can have some big time unintended consequences. So a lot's yet to be determined, but if you have the ability, if you have a rental if you have a rental portfolio, look at some of those things. See if your delinquencies are starting to be, before people are paying, if that's getting stretched out a little bit. See if your delinquencies are up a little bit. Pay attention to those, and then what can you do? Focus on what you can do and what you can control. So you can control, and this is something I'm big in our company right now, is we can control how fast we get 5-day notices out, how fast we're, starting to knock on doors and let people know. Our communication with our residents about, hey, your rent payment's due, don't forget. Because if you tolerate it in this business, then people are going to continue to pay late and just pay when they feel like it. I mean, think about it this way. If you have a bill that comes to if you get 2 bills that come to your desk and you're in a crunch, and one of those companies is always calling you, letting you know there's going to be a late fee, and the other company just lets it slide, doesn't ever contact you, there's no late fee, which one are you going to pay first? You're going to pay the person that's bothering you and hounding you, right? And so we can control that. And so coming into these times, if you're a developer, if you're a real estate owner, if you're an investor, if you're a property manager, you need to be able to you need to stop making excuses, and you need to be able to focus on what you can control, and then go out and execute on those things that you can control every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year, and then ultimately have that long-term vision to pull you out of it, right? At some point, some of this stuff is going to turn around again. right? Are they going to stop raising rates in March of 2023? Are they going to stop in June of 2023? And then are they going to come back down in June of 2023, in September of 2023? Not to where they were at 0, but are they going to come back down 5%, 10% from where they're at now? Yeah, probably. But when is it going to be, and can you make it that long to get out the other end? Those are the things to think about. Thank you for joining us on the Want to Know Wednesday. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a question on what you want to see us talk about next week on next week's Want to Know Wednesday.